So as we move into our next topic, which is going to be geometric constructions using straight edges, I just want to reiterate the importance of drawing freehand in design. And, it's something that we do very, very commonly. So as a process for myself, I usually start like this. And they're just scribbles. This is Pictionary sketches, as I call them. And even though they're really rudimentary lines, this is kind of getting across the idea of a spiral staircase for a client. It's not very pretty whatsoever. I just recently began a new project, and this is an example of a site measure. So going into somebody's residence here, and what I have to do is come up with a site plan so that I can then draw this in AutoCAD. But if it's not clear, it's going to be very difficult to understand later on. So when I first start drawing something like this, I begin looking at the inherent proportions and just seeing, for instance, how many squares this space is, so that I can draw, in this case, a 1 to 2 rectangle, and then very methodically drawing all of my lines. I'm conscious of line weight, I'm conscious of line control, and it just becomes that more communicative. Later, what I'll do is I will then do some thinking sketches, and this is more methodical, and it is a matter now of this is me thinking to myself here, and now that I understand that this is the proportion that's going to be where the new kitchen will be, is very consciously and very deliberately looking at how high things are, how far apart things are, so that if this is 3 feet high, 3 units high, let's just say, then this will be 4 units away. But it is very deliberate, and it's very, very conscious, and we'll get there pretty soon once we start to learn perspective. I also really like to draw existing spaces as well, or existing architecture, existing design. And the study of doing something like that, or really studying something like this here, is when I look at these things methodically, I'm developing a much better understanding of proportion, and in this case materials, and that just informs myself when I go to design other things. This is just some more sketches. This was never, this wasn't around, this was an imagined space, and eventually it was built. And as I said before, there's just nothing more gratifying than seeing something that starts off like this and then ends up built kind of the way you imagined it. So continuing to draw freehand, always mindful of proportions, always mindful of expressive lines. Back to straight edges for the purposes of constructing geometry, very, very precise geometry. And it's getting to know your tools. So what we have here is a drafting surface, drafting table. I bought this not too long ago, and I really like it because it's just the right size. It's small, it's portable, and it automatically comes with its own parallel rule here. And these days what I'm doing is I'm drafting on 11 by 17 because that is easy to format for printers and for scanning and all kinds of things. So it just suits that size paper perfectly. This is what's called a parallel rule, and this is a rule that it doesn't move. Really. I mean, you can loosen it and you can kind of tweak it a little bit if you want to. It moves up and down, and this is for the purposes of drawing horizontal lines. So to draw vertical lines now, so very commonly we have triangles or set squares, as they're often called. This is our 45-degree triangle. So we have a 90-degree corner here and 45 lines, and then this is what we call our 60-30 triangle, and it can either help us to draw 30-degree lines or 60-degree lines, so we get lots of practice. So as far as the care and the maintenance of these pieces, it's really important to keep them clean, and I never use any chemical products on them because it just tends to get sticky and gummy, and we really don't want our surfaces to become dirty. Already I'm getting some marks on this, so I'll have to clean that eventually. Because of the precision of drafting, we want to keep things nice and clean. So most importantly, our lead holder. And a lead holder, as you have learned, holds a lead. And this comes in very many different hardnesses and softness, these leads here. I prefer to draft with an H lead because it allows me to have nice light lines, and I can also use very dark lines, which I'll demonstrate in a bit. So to sharpen these pencils, and it's really important to keep our pencils sharp, is we take our lead holder and we get our lead down far enough so that we can sharpen it. There are little holes on the side. I never use these, but that helps us to drop the pencil a little bit more, drop the lead, and then just give it a twirl. And it's going to be really, really nice and sharp. But there's a little bit of graphite that's left over there, so you can just kind of poke away at this little cotton bit, and that'll help get rid of that. So if you have a pencil that looks like this, it might come with its own little hole, and believe it or not, that's a sharpener as well. So simply just take that off, and if you don't have one of those other sharpeners, and just sharpen your pencil. Very, very handy. These sharpeners, they get really mucky, so you got to be very, very careful. And if you are transporting them, make sure that you get rid of any leftover graphite that's in there, because once that graphite, that very, very fine powdery graphite gets out, it causes a real mess, and it's really hard to get rid of it. Just as an aside, this graphite is actually a gorgeous shading tool, but look at how dirty my hands are. So I'll be back in a sec after I've gone to wash my hands. Hands are clean. Always keep your hands clean before you start drafting, because surface is already getting dirty. All right, we're going to start to draw some lines, and they're going to be straight lines this time. And I've got here a 1/4 sheet of paper, and what you do to start off with is always register that paper. Always line it with your parallel rule. So we're going to take that like so, make sure it's square to that, and then we're going to tape it down. Now I use these drafting strips. Again, it just keeps everything really nice and neat and tidy. And there is an art to taping your paper down. So never do this. Never just sort of tack it down like this. Always pull it away like so. And I'm making sure that my my paper is still square to my parallel rule. And I'm going to tape the other side there. Now tape up the bottom. I can just move my parallel rule up, get it out of the way. And you see when I move it, I lift it. I never drag it across the work surface, because if there's any dust or any graphite left over on there, it'll smear on the paper, and you really don't want that to happen. And if you start off methodical, because you will get some muck and grime over there, but if you start off methodical, you know, it sort of gives you a little peace of mind, sense of stillness, and then you can draw more effectively. So there, we're all taped down, and taping away from myself, and I'm going to move my parallel rule down here. So as we said, we're going to learn how to draw some lines. Previously, I was using, you know, kind of these sorts of pencils to sketch, and that's great for freehand, but now we're drafting, so we are going to use our lead holder. And previously as well, when we drew toward us those freehand lines. But now what's regular for us is to draw horizontally. And we want to draw from one point to the other, so you just give yourself a point. And I can't actually say I can go from here to here, because this will dictate the distance I'm going to go, or the direction I'm going to go. So lift up your parallel rule, and this is how we draw a line. Nice sharp line. I stay over top of that parallel rule, give it a little wiggle, and as I go, I twirl my pencil and give it a stop. And there you go. You get your first horizontal line. We now get to introduce the erasing shield to you. So if you take a look at my line, I got a little bit of a glip there. So if I want to get rid of it, I can use any one of these little openings in here, and all I have to do actually is move it over top of that. Take my eraser, and it will create a nice sharp edge on the other side. And there you go. Now, what I did was I just used my hand to swipe away. Try not to do that, because we've all got oil on our hands, so just use your drafting brush like so, and keep things nice and neat and tidy. So this is your erasing shield. I use it a lot. So now we want to draw a vertical line. So in other words, a line that comes down here, and that's what this is used for. I now will square that up on the parallel rule. So if I want a line to come down that way, I don't guess and do this anymore. I just line it squared up with my parallel rule, and I draw a line in that direction, like so. And you notice that I didn't actually draft that line like this. I have the ability now to always see where I am going if I draw it like so. And I can draw a 45-degree line. And you can see again, it's a start, it's a nice smooth finish, and a stop. And from there I can draw another vertical line. And look what's happening. I'm going to end up with a square like so. All right, kind of easy. So in drawing that square, you saw that I did not need to measure at all, and I ended up with a square. I didn't have to go through the process of measuring one line, then measuring another line. I just used that diagonal. So this is going to be really, really handy. Your 45-degree triangle is very, very handy for this. So in the previous exercise, we learned how to draw a square freehand. And in that square, we divided it like so. And through all of this, we created our circles. And through that, we had our triangle, and we created a diamond and another triangle, so on and so forth. So let's just do that, exactly what we just did. And you'll see just how fast it goes. From here, I just have to create another diagonal. And I will know I'm precise if all of these corners hit. And you can see that when I draft 2, although I said not to draw on that side, I usually do it just for quick little construction lines, I make sure that I'm right at the point that I need to be. And then I'm guaranteed a nice clean connection. I also don't take the time to get those corners precise. I just, it would just take me forever to try to make it precise like that. So rather, I just do quick construction lines. Draw that little square right here, like so. Construction lines very, very fast. And then when I'm going to finish up that drawing, I do exactly that. I'm just drawing over it with darker lines. And those construction lines that are behind just add to the beauty and the structure of that drawing.